Today we're at Cactus High School for the Arizona Robotics League. Last season, the Arizona Diamondbacks Foundation and Honeywell invested in this playing surface that you see behind me to give first robotics teams in Arizona a chance to practice their skills during their off season. And to come and see it today is absolutely incredible.
The Arizona Robotics League is a place where teams can maximize the use of their resources because it is a free event. All teams get to participate for free, and this is all thanks to our sponsors like the Arizona Diamondbacks and Honeywell.
We are hoping that these events combined with our regular season stuff really inspires the community to keep their programs around for a longer period of time, and we can overall grow STEM in Phoenix and all of Arizona.
Hello everybody, welcome back. This is the ARL Extra Innings Show, the show where we cover kind of everything that happened at the most recent ARL events. So our ARL event September was last weekend. It was really fun. My name is Luke. I am an ARL program director and mentor on Team 498, and joining me again is, yes, you know him, you love him, Slide Guy is here again. Hi Arheo, how are you? You're muted. Tough scene. Professional. Test. Mic check. Still muted. Don't know where you're muted. Still. Alright. Sly Guy messed with his own stuff. Classic. It was working 5 seconds before. And now, hello. Try one more time.
Hello.
Okay. There you
All right.
are.
It's good to be back. You know, the little snafu there.
Oh, it's good to be back and unmuted. That is true. All right, where were we? ARL September. I thought it went really well. From a program, a director standpoint, I thought it went really well. I think our volunteers are awesome per usual. Our teams are awesome. We had some new teams that we hadn't seen before. We had some teams we hadn't seen in a few weeks or a few months, excuse me. We had a lot of traversing. It was really good. I thought it went really well. What did you think? How are you muted again? What are you doing? Alright, well, I'm gonna cry a little bit on the inside and kind of just get into the show. And whenever Slide Guy feels like he wants to unmute himself, he can unmute himself. So, ARL September went really well. We had 14 teams in the field for this one. So one of the smaller events, but the average team that we had put up a lot of firepower, right? So, I think we had even though we only had 14 teams, we had a really high score ceiling. Are you unmuted now, Arheo? Yes? No, you are. Hello?
All right. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a good time.
Okay. So let's start from the top. So, how did we look at it? I think qualifications went really well. We actually had 11 matches per team this time around, which I want as our most matches we've had. So our teams and our volunteers are getting faster and faster, and they're our robots are staying put together, right? So after our 11, we had one replay, to be fair. So a couple teams got to play 12 times. So after our 11 ranking points or ranking matches per team, the ranking order is as you see on the screen. Taking rank 1 for the first time this year is 2486, the Coconuts. And then ranking 2 right behind them is perennial rank 1, rank 2 team 2403 Plasma Robotics. New to ARL, 3853 Prytronics came in with a splash. With a very consistent traversal, they were able to rank 3 with a 2.18 ranking score. And back after a couple months off from the ARL circuit, CC352, the launch team, also coming in at the 4 seed with a ranking score above 2. So, if you think about this in ARL Championship standings, both 63.52 and 38.53 across the 2 ranking scoring thresholds, so that's really important for their ranking point score. And if you caught our warm-up episode, 24.86 and 24.03 both ended the qualification with above a 2.5 ranking score, which was something that we definitely mentioned to keep an eye on if that were to happen, and something potentially would shake out if they go on to win the event. I won't spoil it. And the ARL Championship rankings, something might happen. We're involving a bunch of ties, and we'll get there. Also returning is 41.83 the Bit Buckets, Degrees of Freedom 64.13, rounding out the 6th there, as well as 11.65, and then kind of everyone else trickles down below. I thought quals were pretty mellow compared to some past ARLs. There wasn't as much maybe intense defense played. I think a lot of teams maybe were practicing or trying some new things for the state championship that's in October or later, or the Arizona First State Championship, which is in October, or the next ARL event. But with the 2.63 ranking score, 2.4 or 2.54 ranking score for the Coconuts and 24.03 in Plasma, I think what we can glean from that is the overall field was small, and the teams that were in it were able to contribute to a lot of extra RPs and wins. Right, Plasma went 8-3 in their 11 matches, and still had a ranking score of 2.54. So they were getting the end game RP and the cargo RP. They acquired a lot of those along the way, which is why they got a 2.5 ranking score. And that 0.4, right, is really important for their overall Arizona Robotics League Championship ranking. All right, so after our 11 matches and the rankings, we had alliance selections. 24.86 would take 24.03 with their first pick in a kind of role reversal but repeat from the Arizona Robotics League August event. Following that up, we had the number 2 captain at their first event, Prytronics, 38.53, pick up the next highest ranked team, 63.52, back at their first ARL event since June. The storyline there would be 63.52 was the most surprising team to not make the playoffs at ARL June. So after this time off, they're back. They're on the number 2 seed. They would have been the 3 seed captain if they didn't pick. So great showing from Launch Team. Happy they had some success this weekend and they were able to be picked up by Prytronics, but also made a huge splash in their first event. And that aligns together, right? 2 traversals. Alliance number 1, 24.86 and 24.03. Also both are 2 traversing robots. So big potential there. Used to the captain role by now, 64.13 captain the 3 seed, and they picked up 41.83 the Bit Buckets. Another really strong 1-2 punch for our alliances. Both 64.13 and 41.83 both have the capability to traverse. So out of our first 3 alliances, all 3 alliances had the capability to double traverse. Now whether or not they executed it well or got to do it in the playoffs, that's another thing, but the capability is there. And rounding out our 4th seed, captain by 11.65, which is awesome that 11.65 is a captain, right? Kind of like ARL August. The 4th seeded captain was a defensive only robot. So it's cool to see that, at least at our smaller ARL qualifying events, the defense can have a huge impact on a defensive robot can rank pretty high. And 11.65 is playing really good and smart defense. I think their practice from ARL, the August event, really paid off for this one. And they took 498, who, if I, may be perfectly honest, missed half of their qualification matches because they were unprepared and didn't get things rolling the way they expected to last weekend. But they were shooting a little bit of cargo, and they rounded out their alliance with a pure cargo score, 39.44, the All Knights, who 498 and 39.44 were paired together in the last ARL, so they're very familiar. Rounding out the third seed, 64-13 and 41-3 took 9985, who we said is one of the best, or if not the best, value pick back up the draft because they are a sole defensive robot that also climbs midbar. The number 2 seed did not allow 2449 to claim their third straight, or try to claim their third straight qualifier win as the last pick of the first seed, because they said this robot's too experienced, the defense is too good, we are not letting them fall to the 1 seed. So the number 2 seed picks up 2449 as their defending robot. And finally, the 1 seed picks up 9988, which would be 6413 Degrees of Freedom's second robot, Mini. If you remember from previous episodes, Mini can fit in a Chevy Sonic. It is the Degrees of Freedom 2020 robot, but then 2021 robot as well. I'll have a little bit more on that robot as we get into how the results how we panned out for the rest of the event. So kind of getting into it, and I apologize ahead of time. Wednesday kind of came up on us pretty fast this week, so you're going to see me, scrubbing through some match footage here to show some highlights. Semifinal 1 was probably the closest semifinal, or closest match for the number 1 seed in the for all of playoffs. The number 1 seed played pretty tight. Go right over here. The number 1 seed played pretty. The number 4 seed played pretty aggressive defense. Both 498 and 1165 opting to play defense on 2403 and 2486, and let the All Knights or 3944 try to score all their cargo for them. I guess from an in-match perspective, and especially when you compare it to the following semifinal, which we'll get to in a second, usually the number 1 seeds take a bit to kind of get used to how other teams are going to play them. So this just felt like one of those matches, right? Especially when you come from a bunch of qualification matches, dropping right into your playoff match when you're getting double defensed and maybe a little bit more aggressive defense than you were expecting, or maybe a robot you weren't expecting to come over and play defense, coming over to play defense, maybe cause a couple hiccups there. But it would be the last time we see the number 1 alliance, slow up at all. They were very powerful throughout all of playoffs, both 2486 and Plasma, very well practiced under defense now, and you see them adapt very quickly, right? It's not that the defense was new to them, right? Because they are well practiced against it. I just think that maybe a little bit the defense itself caught them off guard, at least in the beginning. But you see them adjust very well throughout the match, right? Both 2403 and 2486 kind of recognize that their best bet is to basically shoot from the launch pad, and that a launch pad shot being protected would kind of tone down the defense a little bit. So, the defense of the 4 seed did a really good job of preventing the cargo from being picked up. But once that cargo was picked up, it was just a matter of time before the 1 seed could get their shots off at the launch pad. The All Knights were surprisingly not defended in this one, and I think and at least semifinal 1, I think maybe it was changed for semifinal 1-2. Our notes on the All Knights were that they're a little slow and that they can't climb, but if you leave them to just pick up cargo and shoot, that they could do some damage on their own. Ended up not being a huge deal for the 1 alliance, but I was surprised, being on the field, right? I was surprised that they had 9988, play counter defense rather than just play defense on 3944. I think, the 1 seed could have really just eliminated all points by the 4 seed if they had elected to play defense on 3944. But the next match in the series, right? Oops, gosh, how did that happen? There it is. Semifinal 3 is much of the same. We don't have to watch very much, but the 1 alliance is putting up a really good amount of cargo points considering they're being double defended, and the Blue Alliance really can't just keep up. The Blue Alliance wasn't even getting 3 taxis, right? And really, those were free points that they should have probably tried to get so that they could keep the score a little bit closer. But really, I think overall, the One Alliance was just way too powerful for the 3 seed. I think the 3 seed, they didn't have a traversal on their team. They didn't maybe have a all around great high goal scorer. They could have had 498 could have played a little bit more offense maybe after the first one, but I think the Alliance just thought their best bet was to play Double D, and hopefully what happens, right? So the number 1 seed moves on to the finals. On the other half of the bracket, we had our number 3 seed take on the number 2 seed, and these were very interesting matches. And to be honest, some very interesting things happened in them. When you think of, like we mentioned before, the Blue Alliance the 3 seed had 2 potential traversals on their team, right? And against a team that also has 2 traversals, it is surprising that there wasn't any climb points at all in this first match, right? Or at least from the Blue Alliance perspective. In talking with the teams post-event, I think the Blue Alliance knew that they may have been, they were kind of playing it by ear. Maybe they were outgunned at the end of the match, and they needed to shoot some more cargo. So they had 4183 continue to shoot to the end of the game, and Degrees of Freedom 6413 took the honors of shooting high. And we see that out of auto, Blue Alliance is actually winning here, right? But the Red Alliance is able to, slowly, steadily catch up here in their score, right? And they have the defender on the right team here, I think. I think 2449 plays good defense on both teams. And I think that Bitbuckets, the Bitbuckets for the 4183 at this event were trying a new shooting mechanism at the top, and they were trying to get a lot of data and shoot from the field, like in the tarmac, rather than what they're used to going up to the fender. And while shooting from the field is a little bit faster, right, because you don't have to travel to the fender, it is more susceptible to defense. So I think maybe 2449 was able to defend both them and Degrees of Freedom pretty well in both these matches, right? They do look a little lost in this clip that I'm showing you right now, so that's kind of awkward. But because I talked about the defense they're playing. But 99 or Plasma 2 is doing the best they can to slow down the 2 shooters on the Red Alliance. Launch Team doing their thing and shooting for the high goal. Prytronics collecting cargo and shooting as well. So really, it was a pretty close match, right? You see the Blue Alliance, right? The defense of the Red Alliance isn't very effective in this early part of the game, and the lead they had from Autonomous was really good. Degrees of Freedom, to their credit, looks like they're they carried a little bit this game, and I think it went back and forth between Degrees of Freedom being defended, 4183 being defended, and here we're seeing 4183 maybe lose connection on the field for a bit. So Blue Alliance takes their lead into the end game here, and so again, if you know these robots on paper, you know that a traversal from Degrees of Freedom here probably secures the victory. But unfortunately, Degrees of Freedom kind of get off balance in their climb and eventually end up falling off the hanging bar. Meanwhile, the Red Alliance executes perfectly their double traversal, right? And they get plus 30 here. So that puts them firmly in the lead. And that's kind of how the first match shakes out, right? If we go back to our slides here, right? So at final 1, or 2-1, ends because of the 30 points of hanger, that's kind of what separates. The second match was very interesting because it's a lot closer. The Red Alliance doesn't get a second hang off, right? But a notice again that the Blue Alliance, right, the Alliance of Degrees of Freedom and the Bitbuckets, 2 teams that we know can traverse, that we saw traverse in qualification, come up short, and it is something to note as we switch back to watching the replay here. The end game is particularly interesting here because again, they run this concept that they want the bit bucket. The 4183 wants to keep shooting until the end of the game. You know, and if we skip ahead, we can see maybe what the score is. So Blue Lions still maintaining a lead, maybe into the end game here. Although Red just drained 2 shots there, so it's very, very close, very, very close. Blue Lions actually taking or maintaining the lead again, like we talked about, into the end game. If I'm the Blue Lions here making this call, I know the Red Alliance has the double traverse in their pocket. I want to go for a double traverse myself so that I can win, right? Because if we're both getting 30 and we're already winning, that's what secures a W. And it looks like they agree with what I was thinking. Unfortunately, the Bitbuckets have a hard time getting aligned themselves, and Degrees of Freedom, as they're on their way up to the traversal, fall off for the second match in a row. Oh, 4183 lost pressure and couldn't climb. That would make sense, right? The idea was there. Right? They needed the 30, and unfortunately, all they needed was the 15. If Degrees of Freedom didn't fall off, they would have won anyway. But you know, it happens, right? The Robots had gone through a long event, and Degrees of Freedom and the Bitbuckets played really well. I think the Bitbuckets specifically will be back much stronger for the next event, right? They were testing out a new shooting mechanism. It's a prototype. They didn't get a lot of time to dial in the limelight, et cetera, et cetera. And Degrees of Freedom, they just keep getting better, right? I mean, the more they get to work on their climber, maybe there's a new climber in the works, or an upgrade to their climber. So, you know, as we get closer and closer to the Arl Championship, I think we're going to see upgrades from both those teams. But that means that Launch Team and Prytronics, while they didn't get their patented double climb, they do get to advance to finals. So they do, and they advance to finals where they face the number 1 alliance. My interest was piqued heading into the finals, because both alliances had shown that they could double traverse, right? I was excited to see maybe 30 points on both sides of the finals, and some interesting things happened as well. We had a really interesting occurrence happen between Final 1 and Final 2. We'll get to. So let's take a look at Final 1. I'm definitely not stalling for time while I scrub through the Twitch VOD, because we didn't have time to cut out the specific matches. Halo, there we go. All right. So Final 1. You know, going into it, like I said, I was very interested. I thought they would send 2449 right at 2403. I didn't think it was possible, really, to slow down the swerve of 2486. You know, I thought the launch team might be the team that gets defended by 9988, Degrees of Freedom 2. You know, out of auto, Red had a really strong auto, right? With 2-ball auto from Plasma 2403, and almost a 3-ball auto, sometimes hitting, sometimes not. From 2486. And what actually happens in the finals here is that sorry, I lost a robot there. Now I see them. We don't really get the defense we were expecting at the start, but eventually the robots get over. Degrees of Freedom do post up on 6352, and they do a good job of slowing that robot down. 2449 makes some peculiar strategical decisions, and it might have been at the direction of their captains, right? They elect to play counter D rather than any kind of defense. Well, they kind of just put over the field. I noticed they were kind of just going after whatever robot was closest to them, but sometimes electing the counter defense route. And then in this first match, they do lose comms after a hard hit there. And once 2449 loses comms, man, the Red Alliance really goes to work on the high hub. I think this is the highest pure number of cargo that's been scored at ARL so far this year. It was really fun to watch. Both 2403 and 2486 just go to work here. I mean, one robot on each side of the field, picking up 2 cargo, shooting it in, you know, wherever the return pops out there. It was really, I think, yeah, unless my memory is fuzzy here, I think they end up with 66 points of cargo at the end of this game, so you do the math. One alliance clearly running away. You'll notice on the blue side of things, there's a hidden robot right now that's not moving, and that would be Prytronics. They seem to encounter encountered some technical difficulty in the first match. So the Blue Alliance is really at a disadvantage here. Red Alliance is up by so much that even this traversal climb from the launch team isn't going to be nearly enough to have them take the lead. I do think it's important to note that if the Red Alliance was able to complete the double traversal here, they would have ended up with the high score of ARL. Right now, and when this will become a factor later, we'll get to it when we talk about the Arl Championship rankings. But the high score of ARL is 102. If they would have hit their double traverse here, they would have ended up with obviously 104, which would have been the new high score for all of ARL. So I do think it's going to probably play. It's going to be very interesting to look back at this match, a match where they clearly had the lead and maybe could have set up for the double traversal earlier. Obviously, they win the match, and that's kind of more important at the time. You got to win the match first, and no one's really thinking about high scores at that point, so you can't blame anyone. But in retrospect, not in retrospect, but in looking at the match from in hindsight, right? This might be a pivotal match in determining our end season rankings, right? So the final score of Final 1 ends up being 95-37, right? And what the interesting occurrence was that we were this close to getting a sub between Finals 1 and Finals 2. Prytronics almost subbed themselves out for, I don't even know who's left. 9498, I think, was the robot that was left. That would have been the fill-in robot. And that would have been really, really tough for the Blue Alliance to sub out Prytronics and, have a chance to kind of maybe push this to a match 3. Luckily, our field crew and the teams were able to kind of work together there, and we bought, time was created. We were able to get all the robots up and running. There was no sub needed. We got all the robots on the field out, for the alliances, and we had the same teams play in Finals 2, but this time all of them working. Jumping ahead again in the VOD while I'm talking. There we go. Let's bounce back here. Nothing too much changes between Match 1 and Match 2 of Finals. The Red Alliance still goes crazy with the cargo scoring. They were dialed in. If I make this theater mode, is it bigger for y'all? It is. Cool. They were really dialed in by the time they got to Finals. Like I said, honestly, the hardest match most of the time for the number 1 seeds at events, not just ARL, like all events, the hardest matchup is the 1 versus 8, because you're playing together for the first time. There's a little bit of jitters. You're going to probably encounter the hardest defense that you're going to face against the 8 seed, because it's the only way they're really going to keep the score in check. So a lot can go wrong in that first series. If you happen to lose the first match, then you're kind of in your head. Maybe you lose the second one or the robot's broken. But then once the number 1 seed got through that very first semi-match, they were pretty much locked in, right? They were locked in from there. By the 90-second mark, they're up to 44 points. That's, they're up 20, 32. Blue Alliance with Prytronics running are putting up a much more valiant fight. But really, the combination of the launch team and Prytronics, and Prytronics probably on one leg, right, in this match because they barely made it to the field, just isn't enough to keep up with how many cargo the Red Alliance were scoring. The Degrees of Freedom, the robot didn't even really have to do anything this match. I don't know if they were having some comm issues or maybe a drivetrain belt chain through or dead battery or something. It looks like they're having a little trouble maneuvering around the field. They kind of were a non-factor. Even undefended, Prytronics and launch team just can't keep up with the pure cargo scoring power. Prytronics leaves quite early to get set up to double climb, which I agree is the right choice there. Launch team, comes over as well there at the end to get the double climb for a little bit of pride here at the end. And the Red Alliance secures their ARL September victory in style with the Coconuts going traversal, I believe, unless my memory is fuzzy. Oh, they're making me a liar. Okay, Coconuts stopping on the high bar. Haha, they got me. But they really, they blow it out of the water here. These final matches weren't even close. The Blue Lions did the best they could. First match, they were down a robot. Second match, clearly all three robots weren't firing on all cylinders. Prytronics were still dealing with some stuff from the semifinals, their hard-fought semifinals. But great job to the Blue Lions for making it to finals. Big points for Prytronics for captaining and making them there, and a much needed point boost for 63-52 after from the June performance. So great job. So your ARL September winners, if I can get to the end here, there you go, are 2486 the Coconuts, 2403 Plasma Robotics, and 9988, better known as 6314 Degrees of Freedom, their second robot. I'm really happy for all the teams on the winning alliance, right? The Coconuts coming in knowing that they have Chessie Champs this week, actually, this coming weekend. So this is their tune-up event for that. And, they looked really good. They looked really good in playoffs. They were shooting from all over the field. Plasma Robotics continues, 2403 continues their kind of ARL dominance. This was their third event win in a row. They've captained one of the three, but they are the captain or they're the first pick. They are rock solid. They haven't really fallen off, and I'm starting to get really excited for our alliances for the Arl Championship because, I think by the time we get there, there's going to be an Arizona State Championship. There's going to be another ARL event. There's a couple teams going to Chessie Champs. There's going to be a lot more practice between now and then, and I'm excited to see kind of the competitive level take another step forward for this one. I do want to shout out Degrees of Freedom 6413. Their robot mini has gone through heck and back, and to see it take a dub. Degrees of Freedom, their team as a whole, this would be their first robot win in their team history, which is great accomplishment. Congratulations to them. And then the particular robot, as a lot of our robots went through, the 2020 robot, the COVID robot, right? Not all of our robots saw the field, and it was kind of sad. We didn't know if we were going to be, it's kind of a lost season. So to see that robot on the field, especially, right, that robot I think was built by just a few students, like on a garage floor, right, in a living room. It was kind of scrambled together during a really tough time. That robot went through missed its regionals because of COVID. It was in a car crash. It does fit in a Chevy Sonic, but that robot, has survived a lot. So it kind of seeing the robot persevere and the team getting it and an opportunity to use it at ARL and to come away with the dub, and not just the dub, but their first dub in team history, is really great. Right, and that's kind of the point of ARL, and I'm really excited that storylines like this are created. Right, for a lot of teams in Arizona, there's only a couple opportunities a year to try to win with your robot, right? And maybe you had a slow build season, or you had an influx of freshmen and they weren't up to speed quickly enough, and you didn't finish the robot the way you wanted to. ARL is going to give these opportunities for teams to continue to iterate on the robot and to get opportunities to put it on the field. And the more you go and the more you put the robot on the field, the better your chances are that you're going to walk away with a win at some point, right? And so that's kind of where this Degrees of Freedom robot has landed, and I'm really happy. And they've played good defense, right? They may have ranked dead last at this event, but they were a valuable part of that alliance, and they were picked up for that reason, right? So congratulations all around to everybody. I think it was while we didn't have the most teams we've had in an event and the finals weren't the closest in score, I think the alliances that were built were the most competitive that we've had. I do. The top three alliances, all of them had potential to double traverse. And some things maybe went wrong or strategically they chose not to, but that's the first time we've had that. So, and especially for Arizona, that's huge. It's huge for our region to see the cool, like the highest point value thing on the field happening and good alliances being built. So great job to everyone. Now I'm sure the reason why anybody is still left in this chat is to see our ARL Championship standings. Slide Guy Arheo is our standings maestro. He is the keeper of the books, as they say. I don't even know if his mic's working. Nope, he said no. That's a good sign. So that's kind of awkward. He can kind of sit there and smile and wave. Yeah, there he is. Classic Slide Guy coming through in the clutch here. So I'm going to do my best to explain the ARL rankings. And the reason why I should explain them is because, well, why don't you just get to it? I will. Here are our rankings. 23 through 9. Start off with our lowest ranking teams all the way to the top. Obviously, the teams that have not competed in 2 events yet are ranking near the bottom. Now, some of these teams are... So we are missing our asterisks. I'm going to cut back to Arheo's face as he realizes he didn't put asterisks next to the teams that were qualified for the ARL Championship. This is awkward. I should be able to know off the top of my head. No worries. Going back. All right, so a lot of these teams are qualified. 9498 is qualified. 9 Slide Guy at it again. You got that right. 9413 is qualified. 1165 is qualified. 9403 is qualified. 2662 is qualified. 3944 is qualified. A lot of these teams are qualified. A lot of them that are near the bottom are not because they have not attended another event. So we look forward to having them at ARL in October because we need to go to 2 events to qualify. And moving right along here, we have our top 8. These also don't have asterisks, but all of them are qualified. All of them. Okay? So, as we maybe projected or were hinting at or talked about during the warm-up episode and even earlier in this episode, we have a spicy 3-way tie in ranking points, championship points, for the ARL Championship Standings. 498, the Cobra Commanders, 2486, the Coconuts, and 2403 Plasma Robotics are all at 94 ranking points. All 3 robots have 2 event wins. One of those event wins came with a ranking score above 2.5. Something really interesting to notice, and I'm going to slide back pretty quick here to kind of look at the rankings again. This was really important. 2403 won this event with a ranking score of 2.54. If they had a 2.49 even, they would not be tied for first. But that 0.04 was really crucial. So 1 ranking point, right? That 1 extra ranking point has now put them in a 3-way tie for first. So if you need to refer to our tiebreakers, please do that. It's in the handbook. But I will do my best as follows. These are ordered in the way the tiebreakers rolled. Okay? So 498 is rank 1 because they were their highest scoring match is the highest scoring match of ARL so far at 102. And which is why I kind of brought up that finals match where they scored, if they would have double traversed, they would have had 104. Because if that would have happened, we would have flopped these standings, right? 9498 would be 3, and 2486 would be 1, and 2403 would be 2. But instead, the way it ranks out, because of the high score, which maybe if I cut back to Slide Guy, he can hold up with his hands if anyone wants to go back and check scores. What ARL event was the high scorer at? Oh, he's checking his notes. He's checking his notes. He's checking his notes. All right, we'll cut back to him. No worries. All right. So then we went through all of the tiebreakers, and we went through all 5 tiebreakers, and we could not find a tiebreaker between 2486 and 2403. So the tiebreaker was quite literally a coin flip. I watched Arheo do it along with 2 other people outside perspective. Like we had other volunteers watch the coin flip happen. So 2486 won or is ahead of 2403 via coin flip. but that is really the only reason why. Rounding out the top 5, we have 4183 at the Bitbuckets at 79, and 6413 Degrees of Freedom at 70. 8848, who we did not see at ARL September, is still there at 60. 6352, the launch team, making their triumphant return to ARL, is all the way up now at 57, cracking the top 8. And 2449, they're at 55 still, after their 2 event wins before this most recent one. So now I'm going to cut back to Arheo, and he can maybe tell me ARL 1 Qualification 9. It is on YouTube. Check it out. Oh, the socials I forgot to plug. Check out our ARL YouTube. We are slowly, and I mean slowly, getting all of the matches uploaded. It is kind of a tall task to download the giant VOD, cut them up, and then upload to YouTube while we're doing a bunch of other stuff in our lives. So, bear with us. We will get them all up by the end of the year. Apologies on that. But that one I know for a fact is on YouTube. So, if you need to double check that we got the high score correct, it's there. So those are our rankings. It will be interesting to see which of these teams goes to ARL October. The ARL October event does take place 1 week after the Arizona First State Championship. So, we might see a lot of teams, because they competed the week before, not come out to ARL the following weekend. I really hope that's not the case. It's just a one-day event. Give your kids, give your teammates, give your robot as much time on the field. Get qualified for the championship. Practice for the championship, right? Come out on a Saturday. It's just like you're going out for the Arizona State Championship. Come out for the ARL right after. It'll be a really good time. So it'll be interesting, like I said, to see which of our top maybe 15 teams show up for the ARL October with a chance to increase their score. As we talked about when we were talking about the number 1 seed before, now that applies to 3 teams. If any of these teams, 498, 2486, or 2403, have any hope of ranking firmly 1, they will have to win ARL October from the number 1 seed slot with a ranking score above 3.0. So very tough. Be very tough for that to happen. I expect that these 3 will remain tied at the end of ARL October. And if that were the case, these would be how our rankings would shape up, at least for the top 3 in terms of tiebreaker. Unless the high score is set at ARL October. That beats 102. That could shift things. Okay. Cool, guys. So we will put the rankings out on our Discord right now. Since Slide Guy's mic is broken, he'll throw them out right now. He'll say, here are the rankings. At everyone, here are the rankings. He's doing it. I can see him typing. We will also put them out on social tomorrow or the next day. We'll throw them out there as well. So moving forward here, we have a lot of upcoming events, and we have a lot of upcoming Twitch shows. So, the Twitch channel is Arizona Robotics League, but we'd love for it to become a Twitch channel that just covers Arizona Robotics, not just the ARL events, but even the regular season FRC events, and even the off-season events, right? Like the Arizona First State Championship. We love robots. We love talking robots. I would love to get more people on the show. So if you're interested in coming on the show, please let me know. I'm serious about that. I was fishing for someone from the Winning Alliance to join me on this week's show, but I wasn't able to get anyone. But I would love to have guests on. Next week, we are going to cover... Not next week. Next week? Next week. Cut to the slide so I just read what it says. Next week... Dude, Slide Guy. Oh my god. Alright. Well, in case anyone was wondering in the chat, Alliance is actually spelled A-L-L-I-A-N-C-E, not A-L-L-A-I-N-C-E. It's a classic Slide Guy blunder, or Easter egg, depending on how you look at it. So next week, we will cover how the ARL Alliance selection will work, right? So I know I've been fielding a lot of questions on how does the Alliance selection work? when is it, et cetera, that'll all will be announced next Wednesday live. We will talk about it, and we will talk about the dates and how everything will work, okay? That'll be next Wednesday. Stay tuned for that. And we'll also send out a team update when that happens as well. So you'll get it in an email, you'll get it on social, you'll get it on Discord, and you can ask your questions, and we can talk about it live on the show next week. The week after that, or 2 weeks after that, we will have our ARL Arizona State Championship warm-up edition. So we will cover all of the Arizona teams from how they've competed in their FRC season and the strides they've taken during the ARL qualifiers. And we'll talk about what's coming up at the Arizona State Championship. And then after that, we'll have our warm-up episode the following week to talk about our last ARL qualifier, which is the last weekend in October, the 29th and 30th. That is a Saturday, Sunday, not a Friday, Saturday, a little different. And then finally, our Extra Innings episode 5 on 11/2, which is subject to change depending on the announcement at the airline selection show on 9/28. So, yep, that might be rolled into the Alliance selection show on 11/2, not to give away too many spoilers. Okay, so we have all that upcoming. Please stay in the loop on our Twitter, on our LinkedIn, which we have a LinkedIn, by the way, on our Instagram, on the Discord. I'm growing increasingly excited that more and more people are using the Discord, especially for robot-related questions or comments, right? Please, if you're not and maybe your team is struggling to figure something out, throw your inquiry into the Discord. There's a lot of really smart minds in there, and a lot of them are really willing to take the time to answer your question or work with you to figure it out. So utilize that resource there. It might be easier than scrolling through Chief Delphi, waiting for an answer, or making a whole thread. You could just get an immediate answer on the Discord. So that's kind of it for us this week. Again, I can't thank our volunteers enough. I thought this event went really well. I thought we had our practice matches. We did that great. We had a lot of practice matches. We had 11 qualification matches. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how ARL practice impacts people's Arizona State Championship performance. Right? Either new drive teams have had now multiple events worth of practice. Teams have had time to build new things, test new things, right? Or just practice with, exactly, new drive teams, right? So I'm really excited to see that impact. Again, we have plans to cover all Arizona robotics, literally everything in the future. We literally are just 2 people, 3 people, right? So if anyone has any interest in covering the Arizona State Championship with me, and covering FTC in Arizona, and covering, right, like quite literally anything, right, Arizona robotics related, please reach out to me or Slide Guy. We're in the Discord, obviously. We'd love to get multiple shows going a week. One of the reasons we started this, and I know we're small, I know we don't have necessarily a ton of people all the time in the show yet, but one of the reasons we started this is because Arizona as a region struggles to gain any kind of spotlight on like, mediums that cover all of FRC. And that's okay, right? We are who we are, but that doesn't mean that we have stories. We don't have teams. We don't have stories that deserve covering. So we really wanted a spot to highlight just Arizona teams and how we're doing and how our seasons progress and the cool things and the cool storylines that are happening, right? Hearing about the DOF robot, the 2020 robot / 2021 robot, and everything it went through and how it finally prevailed at this weekend, that's the best, man. That's why that's the kind of most fun stuff that we talk about robotics-wise, right? Think about the different things you talk to people about when you're at competitions. So much of Arizona robotics at this point is like lore. This team did this in this year, and they got this, they were good then. And remember, and maybe they get defended by a team that they were partners with at this year, but not everyone knows that, right? So we really want to create a space where it's really fun to talk about robots, and not just me monologue for 50 minutes. So if you're interested in that, if you're really interested in talking about teams and how they do and analyzing stuff and covering events, please reach out to us. We got big plans. It's just try to run the Twitch shows while also doing ARL all for the first time, right? That's kind of where we're at, and I'm really happy with where we're at, but we definitely want to grow. So as we start to wind down our ARL season and we wind down the year and we look towards next year, we definitely want to grow that way. So I'm looking forward to it, and so reach out to us on Discord if you're interested in any of that. But I think that's going to be it from us this week. Sly Guy, it's been great having you on. A lot of input this time around. Couldn't be more accurate. I mean, you even told us who's going to win the championship, you know for a fact. You also noticed we didn't cover our predictions from the warm-up episode. That's because I was dead wrong on every front. Almost. And that's embarrassing, so I didn't want to show them again. So, thanks everyone. We will be back next week for the unveiling of the Alliance selection process, the Twitch show. Looking forward to seeing everyone then. As always, thank you to our league sponsors for the 2022 season, the Honeywell and the Arizona Diamondbacks. Follow us on all our socials. Thanks to all our volunteers. Thanks to Sly Guy, even though he trolls me every time. And see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Hello, bye-bye. Okay, he waved. Good.